No more. No? Graham? Grant, sorry. Graham, Grant. Oh, I'm going to get difficulty here. Grant, you probably know more entrepreneurs in the industry, and I'm going to get you to talk about that later. And finally, Graham, who's been in the industry for as long as I have, and working with both the public and private sector. Yeah? So let's start with ladies. So there's only one, yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a few figures up here, and then I'm going to get you to talk about the public sector side. So to put you out of all your misery, there's no misery at all. The industry has in fact been booming. There's strong growth across all sectors, and I couldn't be more pleased with when I read the report. So here we are. So the number of gyms have increased, and we're almost back at the level that we were in 2019. The number of members has increased beyond 11 million for the first time, and the market value has increased by 6.5 billion, so over 1.4 billion more than it was in 2019. And the penetration rate has increased a whole percentage point since 2019, so we're now at 16.6. And it's a great set of figures. We should be really pleased with those. So if we look at the private sector, you can see that all the arrows are going in the right direction, and as we probably know, around 44% of the total members of the 7.7 million, around 44% of those are in the low-cost, high-value market. And market value has increased for the first time again, almost 5 billion just on the private sector. So that's fantastic news. And the private sector, again, 11.4. So on the public sector, we have a situation where we have a slightly fewer venues because some of the older ones have been closing down. But with the fewer members, fewer gyms, we've actually got more members, higher market value, and the penetration rate is higher than it's ever been before. However, Sarah, I still think that there's so much more that the public sector could be doing, and I'm really surprised that we haven't grown it quicker. And I know that you have some strong opinions on that.
Hi, everyone. So those of you that don't know Alliance, we're a development partner working pretty much 100% with the public sector. So we remodel, repurpose and build new facilities. And I think in terms of the public sector, obviously we built most of our stock in the 70s and 80s. So 30, 40, 50 years later, we've got a situation where there's still a massive amount of ageing stock in the UK. And I think the estimate is about £5 billion to get it all up to a modern day state. So what we're finding in Alliance is, and this is very much about fitness, obviously, and public sector have got a much wider role, and they're sort of reinventing themselves in terms of what they're there to provide. So we're seeing a move from sport in the 70s and 80s, leisure sort of early 2000s, where we put spas and high ropes and temping. And what we're finding now is a lot of the facilities we're building will have health-related services being delivered, so hospital outpatients, active ageing programs, diabetes prevention. So this report obviously looks solely at the fitness membership and usage of public sector, but public sector, as I say, has got a much wider platform, and where public sector are doing it really well is where they're pivoting towards the health agendas and making sure the programs that they're implementing are delivering on a much wider remit than just the health and fitness membership. So
Could you just talk a little more about the integrated health solutions that you've also been involved in?
Yeah, I mean, it's really challenging because I think initially, us as a sector thought, if we can collect the data and we can take that to the PCTs and the health boards, will they fund, preventative programmes? And even where we've got the most amazing data and we can absolutely evidence that what we're doing is delivering on those agendas. And there was a study, probably a lot of you saw it this week, on colon cancer and the benefit of exercise programmes in terms of recovery, in terms of preventing repeat colon cancers. They're like 34%. I mean, amazing stats. But unfortunately, the health service is in a really dire state in terms of funding. So I think us as a sector, we have to just do it off our own back. Down the line, I think people will invest in their own longevity and their own health. But I think as a sector, we have a responsibility to put, really comprehensive programmes on. Forward-thinking authorities, as I say, we're doing a lot of co-location, putting health services, putting GP practices, citizens' advice, sort of co-locating services. But we're seeing now, where we're building spaces, that we're looking at these spaces in terms of all manner of application rather than just this space is a studio for exercise. So it's a lot of consultation, a lot of referral. But I think the innovation moving forward in our sector is going to be about the programmes, not necessarily about the buildings. So the buildings will have pools, we'll have sports halls, we'll have gyms, we'll have studios. But I think we'll also have some community flexible space, and the programmes will be where we can truly deliver on the requirements of society, really. So, yeah.
And what's really interesting when you start reading the report is that sports like paddle have been getting so much publicity, but they're only in 4% of all the 7,000 sites. However, the thing that Sarah's just been talking about, and some of you in the room, I know, have also have been talking about the same issues, and Davina from Nuffield writes an excellent piece in the report about how do we bring the two things together. But one of the interesting statistics is that we go from 4% of sites with paddle to 48% of sites that have actually got NHS staff working on those sites every day. But we don't have a framework, which is what comes back to what David was talking about. We don't have a framework where that's pulled together and where we have that extra information. But what we do have on sites are amazing Group X. And you took me to Berlin, where I experienced all those wonderful innovation concepts that you're coming up with. So do you want to talk about the innovation that you keep growing at Les Mills?
Sure, I will, David. I would first of all, though, like to give a bit of context. I love the concept of evolve, and I loved David's challenge about how we can really do that so much better than, his example of the experience that he was expecting and that wonderful experience that he got. That's a wonderful challenge, and we are innovating in Group X, but I have to honestly say that we have so much greater opportunity to do better with that. And the context for this is, and a lot of you have heard me say this over and over again ad nauseum over the last several decades, we're half in the exercise industry and we're half in the motivation industry. It's about motivating people to do it. And why do people go to gyms when they can exercise at home or in the local park, and it's for motivation. They need that. And when we look at what motivates people in gyms, I am a big believer in equipment. We've got huge gym equipment rooms in our clubs in New Zealand. Our flagship club, we've got 40 Olympic bars. We have also a thing that we were just chatting a bit about last night. We have women-only gyms, and that's, I think, is a really powerful thing to do. Women really do want to do strength training. And if you've got a big enough facility to put women-only gyms in, that's something that can really bring a lot of people in. They're incredibly crowded. Some of the young girls have the confidence to go into the main gyms. But, I really believe in equipment and all the standard sort of stuff that we do. But Group X has got so many things that motivate people. You've got a teacher up the front motivating you. You've got the crowd energy. You've got the music. You've got, maybe, if you want to put the energy into it, a wonderful environment, experiential environment that you can create. And we know every study that has ever been done on this shows that people who do Group X come to the club more. We know that's the seminal metric that drives all of our other metrics. If you want to know how good you are, how many times a week is your average member coming to your facility? We know that drives longevity. People who come more stay much longer. They refer a lot more people, and it drives value. And if you want the proof of that, look at what's happening in the boutiques around the world. I know the boutiques have struggled through the pandemic. Probably the pandemic wasn't the cause of that. I think with the boutiques, you've got a very low barrier to entry. You can get into that business easy, and in the beginning of it, you had incredible success with people like SoulCycle and Orange Theory made huge profits. But then you had tens of thousands of boutiques that opened. But if you look at them en masse, the group of people who are going to boutiques, they are young people who are paying what you would think would be an unaffordable amount of money to go and do a single class in a boutique, paying more than in a week than what people would pay for, a lot of people would pay for a month in their facility. So Group X is something with incredible potential, and we have incredible potential to do that so much better than we are doing it. Now, having given that context, I may have used up my time, David, if you want to jump to somebody else, but I'm happy to talk about innovation.
Well, just talk about the innovation that you launched in Berlin and the innovation that you're going to launch again in Amsterdam in October.
Sure, okay. So what happened during the pandemic, and most of you will have shared this experience, we lost a lot of our older members. We all had to cut costs, and a big way that we cut costs was to shrink our timetables down, our Group X timetables down, and we all put our costs up, so people were paying more and getting less. And we lost a lot of our older members, and we are now having to build back from the start again with Gen Z. And it's a wonderful generation of people who just want to exercise more than any generation ever has, but we've really got to be looking at what Gen Z want. And the places to look for that, you look at what the boutiques are doing, what the young millennials and what the Gen Zs are paying a lot of money to do in the boutiques. You look at the big trends on what people want. They want strength. They want to be physically strong, but also mentally strong and resilient. Some of them want to just chill out. So yoga and mind body and Pilates. It's easy to identify what the trends are, and I think that's what we have to do, is we have to look at, in particular, what Gen Z and coming up now, Gen A, and the young millennials want. And that's what we've been doing, is just looking at that. And we look at the boutiques and see what's really happening there. And so we've been applying that to our evolution with the new Gen Z-oriented classes that we've been launching to start to build the memberships, the long-term members, back up again. If you can get them and give them something wonderful, and I've lived through maybe 5 generations. I started working in my mum and dad's gym in 1968. If you can give the current generation what they want, they will come back and back and back for the rest of their lives. And that's what we've got to do. If you've looked at long-term membership, sort of 15, 20, 25, 30, you've looked at that and the curve looks like that, and most of us, until the pandemic, probably had an average membership age of about 40. But if you look at the joining age, it's sort of always been like that, and there's not many people that really join after 35. So if you can get them, and a lot of the studies that have been done, and a lot of you will have these same stats if you do them, the biggest joining group is about 24, 26 years old. And if you can really give them what they want, then you're going to have them for the rest of their lives, and the industry will grow and grow. So that's simply what we're focusing on, is giving Gen Z what they want.
And what Philip has failed to say, although I tried to encourage him in one way or another, is in Berlin that he was doing Pilates. So I tried 3 of the 6 Pilates concepts that Les Mills are bringing out. And then I joined Philip and his wife Jackie for breath work. And again, breathwork has its moments and keeps coming back, but we all do it all the time. And so again, being taught to breathe properly is a new recovery way of working. So I just think that the way that Les Mills are developing those programs are really interesting, and I look forward to what's coming in Amsterdam. Grant. Right. Got the name right. Grant. So you're working a lot with independents, and in the report, everyone will see that the independents have grown, amazingly, by 6.2%. They've now got 2,300 sites. And I was intrigued to see that you get a lot of people from the independents coming to Ashbourne Management, and could you want to talk about how you help them, and particularly why you're so keen on the independent sector?
Yeah, sure. So we supply software and payment solutions to about 1,000 clubs in the UK and Ireland, and pretty much as the data suggests, we've seen probably 40 to 50% of our new inquiries over the last 12 months to be new clubs or clubs that have just started. So we've seen this data firsthand. I think the thing with the independent clubs is that they're trying to differentiate themselves between themselves and local authority or budget chains. So yes, they're new clubs, but they're all trying to come at it from a slightly different angle. So they're all having their unique take. I think maybe a different thing that they're all looking for now is that improved support as well. Yes, the club member wants that experience of what they're going to get from their gym membership, but the new independent owners also want that level of support and that experience for themselves as well. So I think there's plenty of growth that's coming, continue to grow as well.
And have you also noticed that the value of the independent sector is exactly the same as what the low-cost sector was last year? It's around 890 million. And the reason for that is because low-cost on average is £25 a month, and the independent sector is 45. So again, people are going for a higher yield and valuing far more the product that they've got.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. An independent club cannot compete with a budget chain purely on price. You know, if I was to open a club and say, right, it's going to be 10 quid a month, I've got to work bloody hard to get to the same number of members as a pure gym or something like that. So therefore, what the independents are trying to do is create more value for the member and create better service, give a bit more of an independent feel, but obviously that comes at a price. So the better independent clubs, let's say, are not competing on price, they're producing a better service to their members.
Yeah. And Graham, what trends have you seen in equipment supply over the period, say, from 2019 to now?
I can go back to 1986, as you so kindly alluded to the fact that I've been in the industry, where there's a multi-gym in the corner and probably a power job. But, I mean, I think if you look from the pandemic, post-pandemic, there's been such a meteoric rise in strength training. With concepts like high rocks, also CrossFit, but on top of that, I think the female fitness market has just exploded. And I think, that's probably the highest growth with, I think it's about 20% year on year, an increase in women, or ladies and females, we're politically correct to say that, but just the participation from the female fitness side is, from what I've seen, has exploded massively. I think one of the other, if you look at trends in the market, there's different concepts coming in. If you're looking at, Pilates that used to reform beds that used to be quite big about 7 or 8 years ago, and then sort of died probably about 10 years ago, but then died a bit of a death, but now it's come back massively. And you've got, I think the advantage with the leisure centres is they've got the space to innovate and put different concepts in. So you'd see a climbing wall, you'd see a Pilates studio, you'll see, high rocks, you'll see, they've just got the space to probably put more different types of facilities in than a private gym. So I think private gyms have got challenges when they're looking at all these new concepts coming into the fore. So the whole HIT scenario with creating a HIT area. If you've got a 5,000-10,000 square foot gym, I think you're limited in what you can actually do and compete with a local authority leisure centre. And some of these facilities now are 5-star clubs. So when we do more on the private sector than we do in a local authority, we deal with local authority when they're selling their kit and we buy their old kit back. And when the local authorities are actually innovating and creating a new facility, and these facilities are amazing. They're creating a fantastic environment. I mean, everyone active gyms that we deal a lot with. I mean, these are 5-star clubs now, and it's very, very difficult for the private club to then be able to then compete in terms of what the facilities that they can offer. So what we try and do is try and advise and work as a consultative approach to say that identify what product you've got, because you're not going to be able to compete with a leisure centre or some of the bigger clubs, 20,000 square foot, as Grant said, the low-cost budget gyms. So I think for the single site operator with sort of 5,000 to 10,000 square foot, it's really important for them to identify what product they're actually going to show themselves that's the facility that they are. So strength training has definitely taken a huge leap forward. So that's where we're advising customers, and we're opening clubs and facilities for the single site operator. We try and understand what's going on in the marketplace and try and take the best of what they can do with their space. And I think environment is massively important as well, and probably customer service.
And because of geopolitics, because of tariffs, because of canals boats getting stuck in canals, do you think there will be more people like you manufacturing in the UK?
Well, I mean, it does give a great price advantage. If they're buying remanufactured, I mean, we're very good at bespoke equipment in terms of colour, in terms of branding. And if you shot a glass and powder coat a piece of strength equipment, then it looks like a brand new piece of equipment anyway, once it's reupholstered. So it does offer a great affordability. Fortunately for the UK, we seem to have a better relationship with Trump than China. So I think that's a huge, going to have a huge impact in Chinese companies being able to sell into the US. I know it's died down at the moment, but it is very unpredictable. But obviously at the moment we're not getting those tariffs in from China. However, we've just taken on a product from China. We're now selling DHZ strength products, which has a massive range of plate-loaded functional training equipment. We made that decision because we're always short of strength equipment. Cardio's never particularly a problem. We can never get enough strength equipment to sell second-hand. So that was part of the decision for us to take on, that relationship with DHZ. But, the world's a very uncertain place at the moment, but I'm glad we sell equipment in the UK and not the US at the moment.
To come back to Sarah, could you also tell us a bit more about the wellness hubs that you've been developing?
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's more about sort of a wider perspective, because when I look at, and as I say, my sector is public sector. You know, it was sport, it was badminton, it was volleyball. We built big boxes, and then we built, as I say, leisure, and now the health and wellbeing side. And it's a bit of saying in terms of community of Group X. And I saw actually at one of the Nuffield sites up in Manchester this amazing group of people, and it was a diabetes prevention group who were managing diabetes. And the sense of community of these sort of 12 people who probably never really exercised in a conventional gym before, but working at their own pace with their own instructor in a room with no mirrors, which I think is quite important. You know, we build these spaces that if you're not fit, healthy and beautiful, you sort of think, well, I don't feel at play, no, this isn't a place for me to be. So the community side of using programs and spaces and instructors that deliver, as I say, active aging, trips and falls, and, you know, big challenge for older people. If you break your hip as an older person, you've got a 50% chance of mortality within 12 months, which is really scary. But we don't really do anything in terms of balance or, you know, trips and falls prevention historically within our leisure centres. So what we're finding is it's not just the spaces that are slightly changing, you know, so maybe more dementia-friendly design or, you know, better accessibility, but it's more the programs and the messaging that is being delivered. You know, good boost physio programs in the swimming pools, but one-on-one AI-supported physiotherapy. So we're just seeing a swing to, you know, the fitness market is amazing, but there's so many brilliant independents and privates. My view of the public sector is we have a slightly wider remit, and we need to be much more involved in the health of the nation from cradle to grave, and ensuring that we have programs for the older people, because you say you don't join a gym at 60 as a rule unless you're told that it's going to help prevent cancer, you know, stop you reoccurring from cancer. The cancer prehab programs by GM Active up in Manchester, you know, the adherence rate was amazing, because guess what, when somebody's told if you do this you've got a better chance of living, you'll find that people then start to embrace it. So yeah, it's just a widening of messaging, of programs, of spaces that deliver on a much wider agenda than just come and play badminton, come and play basketball in our sports halls.
And I think the Manchester one has now had over 10,000 people through.
Yeah, I mean, they did a study on and forgive me, my stats aren't quite correct, but the first 1,000 people that went through, they recorded the data, and it cut down bed blocking by 1.8, on average 1.8 days. So this programme cost about 400,000 to operate, but saved 800,000 in terms of bedtime in the, you know, in local hospitals and the pressure on the PCTs. So, as I said earlier, we've got the data, we just now need to connect the dots, and also not necessarily expect other people to pay for it, because I think that's our biggest challenge, is we're knocking on doors, and basically every organisation has got the same challenges in terms of budget. So, yeah, it's an interesting time, I think, for public sector.
And of course, we're looking forward to the report from Nuffield on the work that you've been doing over the last 5 years in Sheffield with prostate cancer. So again, coming back to David's point, joining up all these activities that are taking place. So come back to Grant for a second. Do you notice, because of the community that independents create, similar to public sector, that you have people are staying longer, that the memberships are they're paying around £47 a month, so they must feel that they're getting value for money.
Yeah, well, I think, as you said, people now know that they've got to exercise. You know, it's so important. So they're actually, as you say, the number of members up from last year, it just shows that it's up and up and up and up. And that's why there's more and more and more clubs opening all the time to service that demand. And I think now everybody's let up their game. You know, no longer is open a club and the members will come. They've got to provide that level of service to keep the members coming. And also, if I can keep the members coming, I earn more money as well. So that's the key, really. But I think that sort of entrepreneurial spirit is still alive with trainers. Most trainers want to open their own club, and if the number of members across the board are going up, it gives them that opportunity to open more clubs and provide a niche for their community. And if you can provide them with that third space, as we all know, provide them with that third space, they're going to feel part of the club and want to continue with their membership and their fitness journey.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, go on. Are you seeing like differences in what is being opened? Like I've got 3 daughters in London, and one of them spends 30 quid on a guided sauna and a cold plunge. And it's like, wow. You know, so are you seeing like it's not just gym floors or exercise studios, but the whole meditation, the breath work, the mindfulness? Are you seeing that in terms of the independents that you're talking with, that it's changing the sort of landscape of the provision as well?
Yeah, absolutely. As well as Ashbourne, I also own my own club as well, and we've moved our focus as well from just gyms. Yes, we've got all the normal machines that every other club has, but we've now put in the Reformer Pilates, the High Rocks, the Dermalux machines. So we're giving that wellness approach, and I think there are clubs now opening that are going to focus on specific areas of health, not just of fitness and here's some weights, off you go. It's definitely what more can we provide. As I say, there's so many gyms now that everybody that's opening a new site has got to come with that unique area. So whether it be a High Rocks club, whether it be a bodybuilding club, people are now getting that niche that separates them from every other club that's out there. But there's more and more clubs opening all the time.
And Sarah, historically, we've always thought of the public sector being a little more demure, slow to adapt. You know, are you encouraging them all to move with the times?
How very dare you, David, public sector. So, I think, you know, it's frustrating because sometimes I go and talk to public sector clients and I say, what do you want to build? In fact, their starting point, 6 lanes, 4 court sports, hall, 8 station gym, 2 studios. Sometimes even squash. And I say, but we built that 40 years ago. So a lot of what we do with our clients is non-user research, engage with the health groups, and then go to the public sector with a really compelling reason as to why to do something differently and not just build the same things we built 40 years ago. And what you're finding with devolution, where we're all going into unitary authorities that will sort of trickle down the country over the next 10 years or so, is that where you had 2-tier authorities where the smaller authority did the rubbish bins, the crematoriums and the leisure centres, they're now all going to have things like adult social care, all of the much bigger problems and challenges to look at. So I think the timing for public sector is quite appropriate given devolution, that actually I think most of our clients want to do something differently and they want to create facilities that have a meaningful impact on their communities because they're going to be looking after all of those things in their community. So I think from what we find is actually if you've got a compelling argument, a compelling reason and the data that supports it, most of our clients will make a brave decision.
Philip, do you want to also just talk a little about how you're moving the concepts into what Sarah was saying, you know, more innovation?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting conversation that's going on. And, you know, what Grant's saying is the small independent gyms, how many of them have been opening, and it's wonderful. Yeah, they create a wonderful community.
Well, the thing is as well, they can move quickly as well. That's the thing. Obviously, with local authorities, they've got to put in the budgets, they've got to go and get the tenders and whatnot. As an independent club, they can just go right. Sod it, I'm going to go and buy 6 reformer beds and put it in the room.
And it's got difficult to do that with a single concept. So what we've seen around the world is the boutiques kind of expanding and adding on different, you know, more studios, the 3-in-1s, and adding on gyms, and we're seeing at the other end, we're seeing the low-cost clubs around the world have turned into HVLP, where they're adding things on and adding price tiers on, and we're kind of seeing it's difficult for a boutique to compete with a big gym. You know, we used to have right next to our flagship club in Auckland, we had an F45, and F45 started in Australia. We had 90 of them in New Zealand. That's, you know, a lot for a country with 5 million people. And I would just watch the people streaming down all day long to go to F45. And then we put a circuit, a new modern, we'd sort of always done circuit training since the early 80s, but we put a new modern functional circuit in 2018, and they'd gone. You know, they've sort of dropped to 7 classes a day to 1 or 2 and half full, and then they were gone within a year or so. And that's difficult. That's a challenge for the little boutique. So you've either got to evolve, and you know, people were paying 65 New Zealand dollars a week to go to F45, and they could come to our 70,000 foot gym, 7,000 square metre gym, and do everything. You know, 5 studios with different things going on, and lots of weights and spa facilities and all of those things. So it gets difficult to sort of compete. You do have to evolve, I think, if you're a small operator. Every trainer does want to run their own gym, and it's lovely. You can do that. You can have a small clientele and a lovely lifestyle, but it's getting tougher and tougher with the competition to do that when the big gyms are starting to put all of those boutique concepts into them. But the boutiques are evolving.
Right. I've got a few more slides to show people, and then the final QR code so you can download the report. So here's just a comparison between the public and private. Remember that 2,300 gyms in the private sector are independents anyway. And there you can see the average fees as well across all the sites for both public and private. A big thank you, not just to the panelists here, but also to all the contributors towards the report. It's fascinating reading, which I've done over the last 2 days. And I'm just so grateful to all the people for their insights that they provided. Our thanks also, obviously, to our strategic partners, because we wouldn't be here without them. And particular thanks to everyone active for this amazing facility. And of course, all our industry partners that are here today as well, who have really helped us throughout the year, and that we look forward to working with you, all of you, in the coming year. So on the private sector, the top 10, Pure Gyms at the top. There's been a few changes since we did this. JD are up to 96 now. But you can see how it drops very quickly, the top 10, from 422 down to 54. In the public sector, GLL still number 1 at 191. Although, again, both GLL and Everyone Active actually have well over 200 sites, but it's theatres, it's libraries, it's a whole host of different things. But these are their gyms that they're running. And I love the fact that High Life Highland are still there with 23 sites, and they're every year. Charlotte thought, because we're in London, that you might like to just see a comparison for London. And what's interesting is how the private sector average price goes up to 76 in London. Obviously, there are loads of other costs involved, but hence the higher price. Penetration rate is 15, and there's your market value. So that's the comparison between the public and private, just for London. And there's the QR code. So download the report. Happy reading. and it leaves me to thank the panelists for joining me on stage. In 2019, I did actually say that I thought the industry was having a golden moment. And a few months later, COVID hit, and you were all closed. So I'm hoping that I'm not going to need to eat my words this year, but from reading the report, from looking at the figures, the industry really is having another golden moment. But we have surpassed the figures that we had in 2019. So you deserve to give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Society is getting sicker, and there's no question that we are needed more than ever, but we just have to decide, well, who actually are we? Who do we serve? How do we serve them? And how do we actually get the results that we want? I just wanted to take a moment to say, Philip, it was amazing meeting you, because you are someone who has revolutionized our industry. I was in New Zealand last year. I went to all of your clubs, and I just want to take a moment to thank you, because the amount of lives that you and your organization, all your trainers have impacted is phenomenal. Can we just give Philip a big round of applause as well, please? Yes. We've got some legends. We've got some real legends in the room. Living legends, because a legend is someone who's not here anymore. So a living legend is someone who's very much is still here in society. Our first keynote speaker today, Casey Conrad, I first met Casey in a gym in the middle of nowhere, a couple of hours outside of Toronto. And the work that Casey has done over the years is just phenomenal. You know, there's this big thing going on in America at the moment. You might have heard of it. It's called Make America Great Again. And there's a huge initiatives going on around, look, we've got to address this. We've got to do this. There's money. There's great people involved. And that's what we've got to do here. We have some amazing talent in this room. I really, really encourage you to take the next few moments and really listen to what Casey has to say. She's written books. She's presented all over the world. She's got books. She's got audio. But what she's going to be presenting today is really what I think we all just need to really pay attention to make and promote well-being, health, fitness in the UK like never before. Please, can we give Casey a big round of applause and welcome her onto the stage?
Thank you. Of course, I have to start out by taking a picture so I can send it back to all my friends in America. So everybody smile. Awesome. Well, it is so good to be back here in the UK. I've had so many people come up to me and say, hey, I saw you in 1994. I think to myself, wow, am I really that old? Absolutely. So I am going to push your buttons today. The pushy American is going to come and push your buttons. And I am going to throw a lot of things at you that are going to completely jive with everything that you've just heard from this panel, and hopefully open your mind to some possibilities of what I think we as an industry need to do to really take our penetration rate to the next level. What if I could tell you that your market could double? I mean, you know, look, here in the UK, you're what, 16.5% penetration rate? We're not that much better in the United States. I think we're 23.5%. But here's the really difficult truth. When you look at the numbers of where we've been over the last, say, 20 years, it's not that great. Right? I mean, we can all stand up here and say, woohoo, yes, we're at, 17%. But when you look at the population and the need, we really haven't penetrated that many people. And the reality is that even though we have grown in terms of penetration rate, you look around the world and you look at the number of offerings that have been made available to people, and it's 6, 7 times. It used to be you'd have 1 or 2 fitness offerings in a town. Now you got 2 CrossFits, a big box, a YMCA, a JCC, a Planet Fitness, a Crunch, or whatever the case may be. So we've got not that much bigger of a pie, but we have a heck of a lot of people sitting at that table eating the pie. So this makes it more challenging for us to actually succeed as operators. And so as a sales and marketing consultant for the last 35 years, of course, we have to ask ourselves the difficult questions. Like, why? Why haven't we penetrated more people? And there's probably a lot of reasons, right? Marketing. I just got back from the Rimini trade show, and you walk around a fitness trade show, and there are women there that are walking around with barely nothing on, a thong up their butt, guys walking around like this, with a bag of supplements over their shoulder, and you can just see the mainstream people looking at them going, I can't belong there. I don't look like that. So certainly our marketing hasn't been fantastic. What about our sales process? Well, sales are sales. Yes, I know a lot of times after COVID, we got rid of salespeople, but the reality is that most people don't like salespeople, and so that keeps people from walking through the door. Management, you could say, hey, as an industry, we're pretty young. We don't have great management, not the depth and the training that you have, say, in maybe a corporate world. Service. We all know that service is critically important, but you can go to some gyms and get fantastic service, and you can go to other gyms and get really crappy service. So we don't have a consistency in that place. And then what about the consumer? There's a notion amongst the fitness people that don't come and belong to a gym, it's just because they're fat and lazy. Is that true? Yes or no? No, of course it's not true. Come on, you guys, you're going to be this boring? You're not going to give me any love while I'm up here on stage? Yeah, no, of course that's not true. Certainly there is a level of motivation involved in getting yourself up and going to the gym, but I really think it's a little bit of all of the above, There's a lot of things that go on, but you know what? You ask yourself, well, Casey, how can you make such an outlandish statement? How can you say, if it's taken us this many years to get to where we are today, that we can double that market? And the reality is it's change. Over the last 5 years, and I've had a very interesting journey over the last 5 or 6 years, I actually pretty much left the fitness market with the exception of a couple of clients, and I found myself squarely in the medical and wellness space. And it's a very different world than the fitness space. And I've been sucked back into the fitness industry now, but what was it? What was the catalyst that made such a big change from, say, 2019 to today? And of course, we all know the answer to that. It's COVID. COVID completely changed the way that people thought about health and wellness. Because the reality is if you turned on any television, it told you, hey, if you're metabolically compromised, you're more likely, 6 times more likely to die of COVID than someone that is healthy and otherwise fit. And so that really accelerated this health awareness. And of course, while people were sitting at home, many people would, okay, let's order a Peloton. Let's start doing some exercise. So this awareness amongst people that were unfit and unwell changed, and then you've got the younger population that's sitting at home with super anxiety. And from a perspective of a fitness operator, and you heard these people talking about it up here, we as operators had to really completely look at a whole new paradigm of how were we going to succeed, how were we going to get through this COVID, where you had some places, for example, in New York, where you couldn't even open your door, and you had other places, say where I live now in Tennessee, where like schools didn't even shut down. So you had this really wide swath of different situations where people had to learn how to survive. And of course, the biggest motivator, in my opinion, is the declining health of children in Western societies right now. And I don't know if there are any young moms in this group today, but in the United States, you're seeing this unbelievable swing where young moms are going completely healthy, completely natural. They're going back to cloth nappies and, really trying to become more conscious, staying at home, homeschooling, and things like that. So you're seeing this push with the kids in that one direction. But I think that there's a bigger earthquake that's going on, and David and Pete both made mention of it. And I'm wondering if that earthquake is actually going to resonate over here in the UK. And of course, that earthquake, if you haven't heard about it, is the initiative called Make America Healthy Again. That's different than MAGA, it's MAHA. And it was pioneered by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And some of you know that in October, he had a big, huge outing with Trump. And then, of course, November 5th came along, Trump got elected. And on the 7th of November, and I'm gonna read this because I think it is so shocking and I think it sets the tone for the earthquake. So here's what he tweeted out on November 7th. The FDA's war, that's the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, war on public health is about to end. This includes its aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by pharma. If you work for the FDA and are part of this corrupt system, I have two messages for you. One, preserve your records, and two, pack your bags. You don't think that's funny? That's like a major bomb. And the reality is that RFK Jr., when he was running for president, he actually kind of partnered with a woman by the name of Dr. Casey Means, and she is the author of the book, Good Energy. She was a Stanford medical doctor who went through 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school, 3 months short of 3 years of her residency, and she pulled the plug and said, I can't do this anymore. The system is corrupt, it doesn't help people get healthy, and she went and completely reversed her life and is now talking about metabolic health and mitochondrial health. She has now been nominated as the US Surgeon General. This is extraordinary because the fight against big pharma and big food and the initiative that Trump has given RFK Jr., and whether you like any of them or not, I'm not here to talk about politics, but it is creating this incredible shift where now the government has been tasked with the goal of reducing chronic illness amongst adults and children in the United States for a statistical difference within 2 years. Why 2 years? Anybody know? Midterms. Yeah, don't tell me it's not about politics. But the reality is that Kennedy's made some amazing changes already, and I'm just going to quickly go through these because you don't really care about them. But food labeling, huge changes. I mean, the United States, the food system is so bad, it's so corrupt, and it's toxic. Removal of 10 dyes and chemicals in foods, the way that you can actually get a product approved through generally regarded as safe has been completely gutted. He went in and got rid of, 6,000 people at the NIH. The food stamps program is now starting to change, where you can't buy soda pop with food stamps. And of course, the big one, he removed the regulations of needing fluoride in water. So this is 4 months, 4.5 months, folks, that you've seen this. And so what is the implication to us? Well, when you look at the wellness industry, and this is to me, these are leading numbers. I don't think the impact of what's been going on in the United States, and if it will have an impact anywhere else in the world, it might not, right? But when you look at the numbers for wellness, it is truly extraordinary. The 2017, and this is from the Global Industry Report, 4.2 trillion, 2023, 6.3 trillion, and the estimates for 2028 is just shy of $9 trillion. You compare that to the fitness industry, wellness is like 26 times the size of the fitness industry. So huge, huge potential. And here's the reality. In 2024, does anyone know what the #1 search term in Google was? Anybody know? And one of the world's largest fitness organizations paid to produce this information, it was longevity. Longevity. Not fitness, not how to get a six-pack, not how to get a big butt, you know, none of these things that we think are all important to us, but it was longevity. Wellness, right? And when we look at this and now we pull this kind of backdrop to our situation, when we look at a club, we really have 3 distinct markets, right? On one end of the spectrum, we've got the fitness junkie. These are the 20%ers that have been a member of our club forever. They know how to turn on the lights. They know where the hidden key is. They can tell new staff what's going on. Then you've got the wellness-minded. They're in the middle. They're the majority of your members. They're the people, you know, of course they're interested in being fit, but they're more concerned about just general life. They want a little bit of pampering. The market that we are not catering to right now is the wellness seeker. This is the average person where they don't care about being fit. They're not worried about the size of their pants. What they want is they want more energy. They want to be able to get down on the floor and get up to play with their grandchild. They want to be able to not have to have 4 cups of coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to get through the rest of the day and still have some energy to maybe do something with their significant other. They're dealing with chronic illnesses and just chronic issues like poor sleep, poor digestion, anxiety, joint issues, you know, all these things that when we look at a Western population are just proliferating beyond belief. And so here's the thing. They really have similar goals when you look at them, right? Most of these people are concerned about a better quality of life. No matter how, okay, the fitness junkie wants to get 10 seconds off their run, right? But really at the end of the day, wanting to live a long life that's healthy, we say sharpen the curve, or you could say flatten the curve, right? It's this, instead of this slow decline of, you know, going from independent living to assisted living to, you know, assisted care to being in a wheelchair, you know, like a vegetable for the last 4 years of your life. You know, it's people like me and just average people, we want to live full and then just drop dead. That's the goal, right? You know, so no matter which way you look at it. And the question is, how do we, as an industry, tap into this wellness space and find crossover where we can monetize all 3 of these buckets of prospects with the same tools and objectives in mind? Now, back in 2020, in January, I opened my first wellness center in Rhode Island. And of course, what happened in March? COVID. What was interesting was because I had medical devices at my facility that are Class 2 cleared in the United States, I was considered critical. I didn't have to close. and because we were under 5 people at any given time. So why do I tell you this? I'm not trying to brag about it, but we flourished during COVID. We exploded during COVID because people were looking for solutions to try to boost their health, boost their well-being, and there was nothing else in a lot of places that was even open. I recently, 2 years ago, built a biohacking center in Tennessee. This is the space where the biohacking part of the center happens. And on the scale of very mainstream to very woo-woo, I'm more over here in the woo-woo. We do everything that is frequency, vibration, energy, light, oxygenation. But I'm using this as a laboratory of sorts to create programs, and I love the discussion up here with the programs, to create programs that are actually attracting that wellness